um, identify with. It's not something that they want to want to go and visit. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. Um, so we're trying to take something like that a lot of people don't want to visit, and turn it into a place where they actually have a reason to go there and something that they want to actually interact with a little bit. So when we did the plan, we kind of did this what exists now, and then some artist renderings of what could be. So this is about 100 yards or so from Village Creek. There's a park right there to the left, and then they said this is what could be, just so people had an idea, and this is kind of what's there now. So I snuck up on these kids to the right, which I probably scared them to death, but I said, how are you guys using this? And they said that they would typically walk on the street, which has basically drop-offs on both sides, so they're walking in the street, no sidewalks or anything. And they said that this allowed them to walk home from school. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, to use areas along Village Creek for a purpose so that people are kind of drawn to it. And this is just a rail corridor, again, the same one that connects from Village Creek to a park, to a school, that just allows people to safely travel there, because unless you're going near Village Creek for a reason, most people choose to avoid it. So we did other things in those neighborhoods just right around there. We put bike lanes and sidewalks and signage. A lot of neighborhoods are part of, just have a really rich history where some of the civil rights leaders lived, and we were able to kind of tell that story through some signage, and we're able to do some ribbon cuttings and things where our executive director is on the left of this picture, and some neighborhood leaders, the mayor, the public health officer for Jefferson County, the city councilor, and an individual from the Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham as well. So just opportunities for just great PR around Village Creek and just some of the things there. And again, just new sidewalks there. So all of this was done through a U.S. Department of Transportation Tiger Grant, which some of you might be familiar with. But it's just a chance to provide infrastructure to enhance neighborhoods, essentially. And we were able to really focus on Village Creek because we had a history there, we had some partnerships there, and it was just kind of where a lot of need was. So we focused on Village Creek in relation to downtown. So some of these sidewalks and trails and things that you see that kind of come from Village Creek kind of go towards downtown to try to drive people to places of employment and things like that. So just a U.S. DOT Tiger Grant was the way that we were able to do these projects, and this is a bridge that was funded under that as well, that connects two neighborhoods that otherwise you would have to, again, walk in the middle of a street. It wasn't very safe, and it just provides people ways to get across and to, again, just come enjoy the creek and be able to see something that they don't normally see. So all of those things were funded under a Department of Transportation grant. We've been able to do some other kind of smaller scale things through National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grants that just allow us to utilize some of that flood buyout property and put, small scale trails out there, but we have some signage, and again, just an opportunity doing some relatively minor things that just drive people to the creek, and just allow them to get out and have a safe place to walk and just enjoy the community. So that was a Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant, and then another thing that we have been able to utilize has been EPA Brownfield assessment grants, because when we went out and talked to people as part of the Champions for Village Creek Greenway working group, but also when we did some outreach in the community, the main need there was just a lot of blight, a lot of areas that needed to be just loved a little bit. So we were able to kind of look at some strategic places that that would enhance the Greenway system, but would also, provide jobs for those communities. So we went out and, again, talked to people, talked to the community, saw what the needs were, and were able to use some EPA brownfield assessment grant funding to look at some sites, and I'll talk about one at the end in closing, but some sites that we've since been able to work with the city of Birmingham to bring, their economic development folks have been able to bring new businesses there. They've been able to relocate a church to one of these sites, and it's just doing things to kind of revitalize those areas, because that's what they said they need. If you put a park or a trail in an area where people don't live or don't want to go, you're not really accomplishing anything. So we've been trying to couple the development of the Greenway with working with the city to actually revitalize some of these neighborhoods as well. And one of the, I guess, tools that we have used to do that has been to really take our plan and our ideas and invite federal partners in to see it. So we've had a Federal Partners Day where people from the EPA, from HUD, from DOT came down, and we showed them the plan. We showed them some things that we wanted to do, and then we actually went out into the field and said, okay, this is where we are. This is what you see, typically, flood buyout property. And then we would show them on the map, this is what we want to do, so we could begin to have conversations about, what funding is available, what are some opportunities for us to tap into some of the resources of our federal partners, as well as, some of our local foundations. Just they could get, a visual as to what we wanted to do and be able to think about, okay, well, we have resources devoted to this that could help with this component of it, and it just was able to allow us to just take the conversation out of just the local hands and try to connect to some people who could help us actually make these things a reality. And more recently, we went out with EPA again to look at the sites to say, this is if you're out and you see what's available, you just see the potential. It's just so easy when you're looking at vast swaths of green space to talk about what could happen if you're able to clean some of them up, and if you're able to just tap into some funding to build some things. So just having the federal partners at the table and being able to take them out has been really, really helpful for us. And again, just provides opportunities to engage with businesses that then bring them into the conversation, allow them to have workers out there and do work days. And health department has been a big proponent of this, and they send their staff out there to help. And it also just engages the community so they kind of have a stake in these things as well. They're able to actually get their hands dirty and do some things that actually build something at the end of the day, but also just make them more aware of Village Creek and the resources they have just right there in their neighborhood. So in closing, this is just a really interesting project, which hopefully next time we talk, we'll have pictures of when this building is taken down. But for now, this is what we have. But this is a piece of property that on the back side of it connects to a park. And to the right of this is Village Creek. So this is literally right on its banks. And then right ahead of it is the flood buyout property, about a mile of flood buyout property. And this was kind of a barrier, an obstacle between the park and the flood buyout property. And through the EPA Brownfield Assessment Grant, we were able to assess it with a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, as well as a Phase 2, found that it had asbestos, so we got that remediated. And now we're collecting bids to actually demolish the building, and we have a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant to restore the site, plant some native species, put some trails there, do some things along the stream bank to make it just more appealing. So it would ultimately connect the park to the flood buyout property, so we could have a trail there that would connect to neighborhoods, that would connect to schools. So this is just kind of a case study of one piece of property that we're able to utilize brownfield funding for, tap into some other sources of funding to restore the property, and it just allows us to enhance the park that exists there and to potentially connect a longer linear park that would reach even more people. So that's kind of it for me. I would just say the lessons that we have kind of learned, just really quickly, maybe 3 things that jump to the top of my head is it was really, really important for us to reach out in advance. If we said we want to work on Village Creek, who are the people that want to work on Village Creek with us? So we were able to engage those neighborhood presidents and the city councilors and the businesses. So then when we went back out for some of the planning things and some of the brownfield things, we had kind of ambassadors already in the neighborhoods who said, this group has been working on this. This is a priority for them. We know them. We've been in meetings with them. And they helped us with just having some credibility in neighborhoods, but also with outreach. So they know people there that we don't know. So it was really, really important for us to have those relationships up front, so we weren't just going in there with an ask of something that would benefit us and people didn't know who we were. We had taken the time before to really engage some of these people and have those relationships in advance. So that was incredibly helpful for us. Engaging the federal partners, having those visits and getting out in the field and seeing it was really helpful for them to visualize it in terms of helping us to figure out where we need to direct resources and things like that. And then just having a plan. I mean, it sounds fairly simple, but having something that people can look at and get in their head that, hey, this is possible. This is an actual opportunity that we can have Village Creek be something more than it is. Really went a long way from just talking in the abstract of we want to have a greenway here, we want to have open space, to this is something that we worked with the community to identify and create, and they just kind of gravitated towards it, and they still use their individual plans whenever something comes up that doesn't maybe fit with the Greenways plan. They'll refer back to it and say, this is kind of our vision for our community, this is what we want it to be, and whatever the proposal is either fits or doesn't fit with it. So it's just been a tool for them to use as they try to create whatever the individual kind of plan calls for. So just getting out ahead of it, engaging federal partners, and then just having that visual plan has been just really helpful for us to develop some of these things. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, now I'm going to unmute the line for just a couple of minutes and let people ask a couple of questions. We have that time, so hang on just a second.
Sure.
All guests have been unmuted.
Okay, so somebody want to ask a question of Ryan?
I have a question. This is Chris Dreps in Durham, North Carolina. The question is, how long did the process of the Tiger Grant take from start to finish?
That's a great question. So we're still in the middle of it, to be honest. The application we received was from 2012. So we started work then, and it's supposed to end in this summer. So in terms of grant length, like that's pretty quick, but it's still, we've just ran into some barriers of legal things with the city. But it was scheduled, usually the way that we wrote it, it was supposed to be complete within 2 years. Now we're looking at closer to 3 years, but we're still kind of in the middle of a lot of it. So hopefully by the end of the summer we'll have everything complete. And but yeah, so it was supposed to be 2 years. We're still in the middle of it. Hopefully by the end of the summer, which would be about 3 years.
Yeah, thank you. How about the Brownfield Grant? Has that been a big headache, or has that been also not too bad?
No, the Brownfield Grant, so that was, again, about a 3-year grant. The primary headache with that, I guess, would be we went out and met with people in the community, and they identified some sites that they thought would be possible for rehabilitation or restoration or just economic development. It would just be going and trying to identify who the property owner is and get them to talk to you. I mean, that was really the biggest obstacle we had. We identified probably 70 sites, and we were able to assess 8. of those 8, we've been able to do things with about half of them, and we're working on the other ones to try to do some economic development. But there were some big pieces of property that were just prime for a greenway or for something that would benefit the community that the property owner just would not return our phone calls, or so they didn't want anything to do with it. So that was, the grant itself was great, but the headache came from trying to find the property owners and get them to recognize the value of assessing their property and trying to get them to realize that it doesn't necessarily negatively affect them.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Robin for the moment, and I'm going to remute lines. And if people can, because there seems to be quite a lot of background noise, try to put your questions in the chat room, which is right there on the left of your screen. There's a little cloud that allows you to write things in as we go along, but I'm going to mute everybody's line again. Hang on.
All guests have been muted.
Okay, everybody. Robin Carruthers from Groundwork Cincinnati will take it away.
Okay, thank you. Groundwork Cincinnati is a community-based, boots-on-the-ground nonprofit. We work in economically distressed and underserved neighborhoods in the lower Mill Creek in the city of Cincinnati. There are about 16 neighborhoods that are closest to the river. A number of years ago, we looked at the complex and complicated set of circumstances we had and decided to create a comprehensive strategy called the Mill Creek Healthy People, Healthy River Strategy. It's based on a very simple premise, and that is that communities, neighborhoods that are livable and sustainable have healthy natural resources and healthy people living in them. So it's a comprehensive strategy. The Mill Creek Greenway program is a foundational piece of the strategy. And I'm glad to talk about this today. And Ryan, the work you're doing is amazing. I just think for urban waters in particular, greenways are a way to help you meet multiple objectives, and they provide environmental, public health, transportation, economic and recreational benefits, kind of in one fell swoop. So I think it's a good strategy to invest in if you're working in urban waters. Okay. So 20 years ago, when I started working on Mill Creek, there were frequent fish kills in the summertime. Hundreds of carp would flop on the banks of the river and die. And in some inner city areas, we only found leeches, bloodworms, and sludge worms living in the water. Parts of the river had been channelized by the Army Corps of Engineers. There were many, many brownfields, old landfills, known and unknown contaminated sites. And we had unfettered combined sewer overflows that dumped untreated sanitary sewage into the river whenever there was a good rain. So there were a lot of environmental problems. And one thing I would say about the brownfields for Mill Creek, it is an industrial valley, so brownfields are ubiquitous, and every step of the way along the river where we do our work, we do have to be concerned about due diligence, and we're in the business of transforming blighted, derelict properties into something that the neighborhoods and communities want. Because of the multiple stressors and sources of pollution to Mill Creek, the national organization American Rivers in 1997 designated Mill Creek as the most endangered urban river in North America. I mentioned that in Baltimore recently at a New Partners for Smart Growth workshop, and a panelist from Los Angeles took exception because he works on the LA River. But in truth, for 1 year, we were on the most endangered urban river list for American rivers. So from day one, starting 20 years ago, just as Ryan talked about the need for early outreach and engagement of people most impacted by the problems and most affected by hopefully positive outcomes, it was really important for us to start in neighborhoods, in the low-income neighborhoods that share the floodplain. And we met actually with over 150 groups, businesses, churches, neighborhood councils, and many others to do some visioning and planning. And we produced a Mill Creek Watershed Greenway Master Plan. And that has been our guide for the Mill Creek Greenway ever since. But it has been important since then to go back into neighborhoods, and as we do specific projects or specific parts of the Greenway, to engage those neighborhoods in planning and design of the projects. The Watershed Master Plan very quickly, because of all of the input we got, became multi-objective. And so we had people that were interested in trails, we had people interested in stormwater management, jobs and job training, health and safety, economic revitalization, and the master plan in one way or another impacts those interests, and we hope are providing those benefits as we go. In addition to just the visioning, planning, and design, we also recruit neighborhood residents and organizations and other groups to help us with implementation and stewardship of all of our eco projects and the Greenway Trail. The picture on the top left shows an event that we had a couple years ago with an interesting partnership between the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Scott's Miracle Grow and us and a local art group that we partnered with. And a lot of people think of Scott's Grow as, you know, a chemical production company, but they actually have a line of organic products, topsoil, mulch, and compost, and they donated $10,000 worth of those products to us for use in the Greenway program. And they also gave us some cash as a result of that. And the Conference of Mayors was involved because it was a mayoral competition across the country. So our mayor at the time, Mayor Mark Mallory, was honored as well. The photograph at the bottom of the slide shows a groundbreaking that we had last fall for the fourth phase of our trail. And we had students as well as adults and over 80 people from the local neighborhood participated, so it was a real celebration. One thing that a Greenway program can give you the opportunity to do is ecological regeneration projects. I stopped talking about restoration when I started working on Mill Creek. We can't restore it to its original pristine conditions, but we can heal the damage and we can improve the functioning of ecological systems. So we've done 33 projects so far of stream banks, wetlands, floodplain, aquatic and terrestrial habitat. This slide shows you one major stream bank stabilization project we did. This was along a public park, and a lot of very old trees had fallen into the river as a result of the severe stream bank erosion. About 50 feet high, vertical wall, and we stabilized it using a process called soil bioengineering systems, using layers of rock and then rock and soil and vegetation all the way up the bank. And the photograph at the bottom shows you what it looks like today. So it's very effective at stabilizing stream banks, particularly in urban rivers where you have very irregular hydraulics and hydrology. It stabilizes the slopes, provides habitat, shade for the creek, and so forth. So a lot of ecological benefits as well as aesthetic benefits as compared to pouring concrete or grouted riprap or riprap crushed rock down slopes. We've done some interesting projects, and again, this is all along the Greenway Trail. One is called Laughing Brook. It's inside a major park. Top photo shows you what it looked like before we got started. The bottom photo shows some sculptures. We have over 100 sculptures of cupped ham that transform into 8 species of Ohio native fish. And it's a constructed wetland. We graded the parking lot to drain to the wetland. We surrounded it with rain gardens. There are wetland plants in the channel. There's an underground cistern and a pump. We have solar panels that power the pump that circulates the water through the system during hot, dry months of the year. And again, this is multi-objective. The bridge is part of the trail. We use the site for environmental education, outdoor learning experiences with our students. It's a public art project, and it demonstrates eco-friendly stormwater management and sustainability principles and practices. Here's another blighted site. We took this site along the creek, and we created a trailhead here. So you can see the trail in the background, and the trailhead provides parking. We, again, graded the parking lot to drain into 4 bioretention beds and a bioswale along the trail. We have signage there, benches and trash receptacles, recycling, and so forth. But it's a nice place for people to come and park and get on the trail that way if they don't walk, which is preferable, or bike to the trail. This map shows you the scope of what we're doing. We're engaged in the lower 14 miles of Mill Creek. I think I mentioned before there are 16 different neighborhoods that we're working in, some more than others depending on where we are on the trail. And the yellow dash line shows you the next phase of the trail that we're going to be working on. The sections in red, solid red, are the 2 pieces that we've completed. To the south, we've got about 3 miles done, and to the north, about 1.7 miles. So within the coming year, we want to connect those 2 pieces together. And we're going to be engaging one low-income neighborhood that is called Winton Hills. And to give you an idea of the socio-demographics, 83% of the neighborhood is African American. 65% of households are below the federal poverty level. There's a 28% unemployment rate, and the median household income is $12,202. So again, we're going to work with them, and with their help, we'll do the project. It's an area where there are no sidewalks for a long part of the trail. The sidewalks that are there are in poor condition. So I guess what I'm saying is that part of what we do with the Greenway program is we also help neighborhoods become more bikeable and walkable, working to improve mobility within the neighborhoods as well as connections to the trail. And the other thing, too, is that we want the trail to be accessible and convenient, and it's certainly free for anyone who wants to use it. And that's really critical in these low-income neighborhoods. They're not going to get in a car and drive, 30 miles to a park. They need something that's closer by, and something that's available right in their neighborhood, that's convenient, and where they can have opportunities for both active transportation and outdoor exercise and recreation. On the top right of this slide, there's a sign, and it talks about one of the neighborhoods that we work in. Every neighborhood gets to contribute text and photos or other graphics about their neighborhood. So it's information they want other people using the trail to know about their neighborhood. And I think that also helps to develop some ownership within each of the neighborhoods we work in. Another thing we're doing is programming for the Greenway. We collaborate with other organizations that have recreation as their mission, or in some other way are promoting active living and active transportation. So in this case, these two photographs are pictures of youth on bikes on the trail, and we provide bike safety and bike repair workshops for students in their neighborhoods and at their schools. The Mill Creek has a very rich cultural history. We know that during the period of the Underground Railroad, Mill Creek was a major transportation corridor for slaves crossing the Ohio River from the south and making their way north to freedom. So we have what we call the Mill Creek Freedom Tree Program. The bottom photograph shows some people working on tree planting along the river. We tell our students that in the Green Team youth we work with that we're planting the trees in honor of the courage of the slaves and also the courage of the freedom conductors, the people who helped the slaves and risked imprisonment. And that our Green Team youth are in turn creating their own legacy for the future by planting these trees and helping us improve the health of the river. Another project that we do in conjunction with Healthy People, Healthy River and the Greenway program is that we've been planting edible forest gardens along the creek. We started out with a huge cornfield and squash and beans. This year we've replaced all of that because it was so labor intensive with fruit and nut trees, and we're growing those. We still have another edible garden that is at the end of a public park. And basically the food, the edibles we're growing is for both people and wildlife, and people using the trail can help themselves. So all the produce is free, and at first I was concerned that there might be a lot of rotten food laying around, but in fact it went very, very quickly. And so we know that people are taking it, they're eating it, and it's a very good way of helping to encourage nutrition, healthy eating. And finally, the other part of Greenways and what we do as a Groundwork Trust is that it's really critical to us to build capacity in Mill Creek neighborhoods and in our Green Team youth. We operate a year-round environmental education program. Our students, we work with between 3,000 and 4,000 students every year from over 20 schools, and we engage them multiple times during the school year with classroom presentations and exercises. We take them out in the field and they do water monitoring and biological studies. And all of the kids do service learning projects, mostly along the river and sometimes on their school campus. So we think that this is a vital part of what we do. we knew 20 years ago that we were undertaking an intergenerational challenge, and we're less than halfway there. So after 20 years, so I think that one of our best investments that can be made is in the youth to help build a conservation ethic, to get them engaged. And I think the other part of this, too, is green careers and pathways. A number of federal agencies, including the Park Service and U.S. Forest Service, have said that, they're concerned that they don't have a strong feeder system of young people and people of color coming into the workforce and working with these federal agencies. And the same is true in many cases locally and regionally. So in Cincinnati, one of our major school districts is Cincinnati Public Schools. And again, about 70% of the students are African American, and about that same percentage of families below the poverty level. So we think it's important to give students information about diverse careers and pathways. We learned a couple years ago that a national organization recommends one guidance counselor per 250 students, and at Cincinnati Public Schools there's one for almost 700 students. And Cincinnati Public Schools is doing a great job of increasing graduation rates, but when you look at those high school graduates over time, they're struggling between age 18 and 24 or 25 to find their way either through education or employment opportunities. So being involved with Groundwork USA, the National Park Service, and EPA has been terrific. We have lots of mentors also locally, environmental professionals that are part of our program, and they go out with kids to do water monitoring and other field work. At the end of the school year, we have a student congress where the students report peer-to-peer on what they've learned for the year, and we have a green career fair. So we have a lot of environmental professionals participating in that as well. And Groundwork USA has opened up opportunities for our youth to go outside of Cincinnati to national parks, national forests, and that's been great too. So those are some of the things that we're working on that are connected to development of greenways in our city, in Cincinnati, and I hope that's been helpful.
Great. So Robin, there are a couple of questions here. I'm actually not going to open the lines again because it was so noisy, but we have a couple of questions here that we can let you take for another couple of minutes. One is, how do you measure the ecological regeneration success? In other words, do you have some metrics? Are you working on things in that direction?
Yes. I mean, we start with sound science. So we have ecologists that assess properties for us in terms of, soil health, vegetation, habitat, and develop recommendations that we then follow. We do some metrics. We certainly keep track of the number of shrubs and trees and vegetable plants and so forth that we're putting in the ground. We know from biological studies that were paid for by the Metropolitan Sewer District of Greater Cincinnati that over the past 20 years, the wildlife is coming back. We have great blue heron and black-crowned night heron now that fish in the river. We have all kinds of mammals and reptiles that were not here 20 years ago. So we know we're making progress. It's inspiring. It's good to know and to celebrate, but we also know that we still have so much more work to do over the next 20 to 30 years. Then in addition, for some of our projects, we've done water monitoring, before, during, and after projects. We're monitoring the success of our green infrastructure projects and our bank stabilization projects. So are those the kind of metrics that you're asking about?
Well, you know what? One of the things we're going to do is copy some of the questions and have you respond to them just briefly. But I think that'll start. I'm going to give you another one, which is somebody saying, great signs. Who's the sign developer? Design and installation, is that done by you, or what is that?
I have no design skills whatsoever. We hire a graphic design firm to do the layout, and then we have the signs fabricated and installed. The sign panels are made so that they're weatherproof, and people put graffiti on them, and you can wash it off. So those are good. And the sign posts are made from steel I-beams that are a reflection of the industrial history of the area.
Terrific. Okay, this isn't a quick question, but make a bit. Actually, there's two more, and we may hold them. How did you fund the creation of the Mill Creek Greenway Watershed Master Plan? So, funding the master plan.
Yeah, we had a local foundation called the Greater Cincinnati Foundation that provided a grant so that we could do the master plan, and the work that we do, the Greenway trail work, is mostly in the river corridor, but we work in neighborhoods throughout the lower Mill Creek watershed, and we've done other eco projects in other sites away from the river, but still in the lower Mill Creek.
Okay, terrific. Now we're going to move on to Heartland. And Jill, you want to, as soon as it comes up here.
Thank you. So glad to be with everybody this afternoon. Hang in there. We're almost to the finish line. So I'm Jill Erickson. I'm the program manager for the Heartland Conservation Alliance. And joining me here today is Jacob Wagner. Jake is an associate professor and the director of urban studies in the Department of Architecture, Urban Planning and Design at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. So Jake, thanks for joining me today. Sure. And Diana and Anne-Marie, thank you for hosting this, and for the Urban Waters Learning Network for providing these opportunities for us to learn together. So just let me set the stage a little bit before I tell you about our project. Heartland Conservation Alliance is a new grassroots nonprofit agency. We work collectively with diverse partners to protect natural resources in the Kansas City region. Thank you. So our mission statement, we are an urban land trust. So for us, that means that we can't just conserve what hasn't been developed yet. We've got to restore, or my new favorite word, we have to regenerate what's been damaged. And we've got to focus on our communities. We've got to focus on people. So the area that we work in includes 2 states, 9 counties, and nearly 120 cities. As a private nonprofit, we can better serve nature, which, as all of us know, doesn't really care about a state line or an east-west racial divide or poverty or politics. And that's one of the lessons that we've learned, is that working with nonprofit partners is really going to advance a project or a Greenways plan that you're working on. And because protecting nature in a metropolitan area is very complex, we've adopted a collective impact model to guide our work. So in other words, we're an alliance so that we can actively involve and engage and leverage not just the expertise, but the resources of many partners. And we really reach out to folks that aren't just the usual suspects. We really want to work with public health. We really want to work with crime. We really are looking across the landscape to involve a lot of people to help us, because our goal, like you heard already today, is we're aiming for multiple benefits on these projects. So over the past 2 years, we have convened these partners, and we've created a strategy to help us focus our efforts. So if you look at this slide, we've come up with a three-prong approach. Essentially, we're making space for this discussion and resource sharing by convening our partners. And we are going to conserve the natural resources in a more traditional sense, like a land trust, conservation easements, supporting good land use policies, and even land acquisition. And one of the most critical pieces will be reconnecting, and in some cases, connecting for the very first time, people and nature. The way that we've been funded up until now is through EPA Urban Waters grants. So that's been a real critical component in us getting going and getting focused on doing this work. We've decided to focus our efforts on one watershed in our metropolitan area, and it's the Blue River Watershed. It's the largest in our region. 2/3 of our service area drain into the river, and about 1 million people live in this watershed. The two biggest threats to the river are non-point source pollution and development. And our river suffers too because, quite frankly, it's become invisible to the public. So just another takeaway in your planning and your project planning is to have a focus area. That's really helped us quite a bit. So guiding our strategic planning are several existing regional conservation plans in our area. One of the reasons HCA was created was to find ways and resources to get these plans off the shelf and to get them implemented. We really want to get these plans dusted off and in the right hands of the right people. Several of these plans include creating a Greenway system in our region. And this goes back more than a decade, and that's another takeaway for when you're thinking about your planning and your projects, is these things take time. So the Metro Green Plan is a Greenways plan that was developed by our regional planning agency, Mid-America Regional Council. And as you can see in this slide, the goal was over 1,000 miles of interconnected trails and greenways. And they built this Metro Green Plan based on something the natural resource inventory. So Mid-America Regional Council did an assessment of all the natural resources in our area, and they built the Greenway plans on the backbone of that. And our city is a river town, so this Greenways plan is really based, the backbone of it are these rivers and streams that are all throughout our areas, through neighborhoods and through the city. Another really key component of our strategic planning and our Greenways planning is, you heard me say earlier that one of the main threats to our urban rivers is runoff. And so stormwater is really, really important to us. It's really important to the other partners in this project. Another takeaway that you might make note is that working on these projects, it's really, really important to align your strategies with your partners, so with our city, with our water services department. So in Kansas City, we're not unlike a lot of other cities that we are facing a very big problem with vacancies, vacant lots, vacant properties. About a year ago, the Kansas City, Missouri Environmental Management Commission created a task force of volunteers to look at our situation and to make recommendations for best reuse of the vacant land. This slide is from one of the first presentations made to the task force, and it really just shows there in green, you can see the sheer volume and also the concentration of the vacancies in our city. And then this second slide also shows the Kansas City Land Bank is managing a significant number of these properties. The task force completed a report for the Environmental Management Commission, and we presented this formally to our City Council in December. So now we have another plan. But remember that Heartland Conservation Alliance, the very foundation of our organization is that we were created to make sure these plans don't stay on the shelf. So we see these vacant lots not as a problem, but we see them as an asset and as a leverage point. We think that these vacant lots are an opportunity to fulfill these earlier dreams of that Greenway. We know that open space can make these neighborhoods more vibrant. We know we can stir up some economic development, when we turn blight into productive space. And really, more importantly, we know that our city needs green infrastructure to save our Blue River. So about a year ago, we asked EPA Urban Waters folks to consider joining us with this project and help get the ball rolling. So we are about 6 months into a 2-year project that's going to end up costing just about $90,000. The key to this project is our partnership. And the partners that we were able to pull together to work on looking at these vacant lots as an opportunity to preserve open space and build out this Greenways plan really couldn't have happened if we weren't involved in the Urban Waters project, the Middle Blue, and without the leadership with EPA Region 7, specifically Roberta Vogel-Luyten. So if you look at this photo and you see the diversity of our partners, the person standing at the front presenting at our very first partner meeting is Jake. And Jake's going to tell you all a little bit more about some of the background that went into putting this project together.
All right, so we actually have a design-based urban planning program, not unlike, I believe, the Urban Studio in Alabama was mentioned in the first presentation. And we've worked with the folks down in New Orleans. I saw there's a few folks on the call from New Orleans, including Dana Ennis. Hello to Dana. This is work we started with students to build the research and the justification for a greenway in New Orleans called the Lafitte Greenway, which is now under construction. With the project here in Kansas City, we wanted to focus on looking at the opportunity of vacant lots and vacant land in the city to restore what Randy Hester calls ecological democracy, focusing on people and their health as well as the health of the systems in the city. And so what we're doing is looking at both cultural changes as well as physical planning changes. As Jill mentioned, there's this large spot in our city where we have literally thousands of vacant lots and vacant houses. We're not quite Detroit, but apparently we're aspiring to be the next Detroit in some parts of the city. This is partially due to decades of disinvestment, blight, highway construction, but overall it provides an opportunity to look at specific locations in the city where we can restore the existing watershed and rebuild that infrastructure and greenways to benefit these neighborhoods. So as part of Jill's project, we worked with the students to identify specific sites in the city where we could do some greenway planning work. And specific to the Blue River, we looked at a part of the city. Here on the map, you can see existing vacancy. All the brown is basically, the brown is all the vacant lots. You can see the existing greenways there. You can see large parcels that are vacant. There's a large area in the city where there was a street that was never developed. So we're looking at how to connect these different places. And that's where we teamed up with Jill to look at how we could connect some of these lots and create a network basically of connectivity through an area that has a lot of vacancy. So we worked with the students to identify the publicly owned land bank properties that could be connected along existing greenways, along existing parks, along existing waterways, and looked at restoring the watershed while also creating amenities in areas with high amounts of vacancy. So we're really at the planning stage here as far as rethinking how these vacant lots, but the ultimate goal is to think about how we can create connectivity for the neighborhoods and restoring the watershed at the same time. And so that's the idea. This is sort of the preliminary planning work. Kansas City has a park system that was designed by Kessler, who was working at about the same time Olmsted was working, and that system really needs to be updated. So we're looking at how to rethink green infrastructure today in the context of that existing planning framework. The parcels we started with were primarily owned by the city or controlled by the city through the city's land bank. But we also know that there are many, many private properties that are also vacant as well. So we're looking at both as opportunities for restoring connectivity and creating greenways.
Jake, a quick question here that came up, the primary owners, which you've pretty much answered, but are you looking at also doing a ownership takeover if the lots are not, if they're, nobody's paying taxes on them, or is that another step that you're going to work with the city?
That's partially why we are a partner in this grant with Jill. And she has, you saw the list of partners, the city is a partner, the land bank is an active partner in this work, water services. So we've, through this planning process with Jill, we're now moving from the overall conceptual idea about how these individual parcels could be connected and planned into new greenways into, okay, which projects are we actually going to do next? So we're narrowing down literally thousands of lots down to the more important, 100 lots or less that we could actually look at securing in terms of long-term control, conservation strategies, and perhaps new partnerships to actually control and manage the land.
Great.
So that's where we are. We've been working with Jill now to move towards actual doing the site visits, looking at lots that are available publicly through the land bank, their strategic location, talking to the neighborhoods and getting them engaged.
And that really is the important part, the where we want to end with this project and what we promised in the 2-year grant is that at the end of all of this, as we narrow down from 3,000 to 100 to 3, we want to find 3 sites that we can actively engage the community, and we've heard a lot about that this afternoon, how important that is. Get them engaged really early on and help them tell us what they'd like these lots or these groupings of lots to be at the end of the day. We've got our filter. We know we want to capture stormwater. We know we want to protect biodiversity. We know we want to make the watershed healthier. But what does the community need and what do they want? So as we're moving out of this first phase of doing the analysis and working with the city, working with our regional planner, working with these students, we're going to get our boots on the ground and engage some more of our partners to go out and visit some of these sites and start talking to the neighbors. And, at the end of it, when we're done, we want to have 3 models, and I like to say we're really aiming for some sexy models because this is a critical time for Kansas City, not only with this vacant lot issue, but with green infrastructure. We really need to show our leaders how important this is and the multiple benefits that we can gain by working in this way. So I'll just conclude with this, with the projected outcomes. We're not just looking to get these 3 lots, adopted by the neighborhoods, cleaned up by the neighborhoods, being more productive, but we really want to continue to build the partnership and the alliance because we think that's where the next great project is going to come to advance the Greenway plans. And this last photo is a picture of the Blue River up in the headwaters, and it's this picture and this place that I visited often that really inspires us to keep on task and keep working on this. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Before I open the lines, I'm just wondering if people have questions, if they can type some in, or at least make sure that your speakers are off and that the noise is down. I can do that, but I think this is, we have about 10 minutes left for questions. And I'm going to try to open the lines up. Hang on. And if it's too noisy, then start typing.
All guests have been unmuted.
Okay. Who has questions for Robin or Ryan or Jill or Jake? Well, I have a question for actually Robin, I think, and also Ryan. In terms of interpretive signs, have you been doing them on your own with groups? How has that process happened for the ones that have been under your tutelage?
Well, for Mill Creek in Cincinnati, I go to neighborhood council meetings, and I'm on the agenda, and that's how I recruit people to develop the sign content. So it really comes from the neighborhood councils.
We do something similar, just going out and talking to people. A lot of the civil rights signs that I showed were, we have a Birmingham Historical Society that just has a wealth of information about that type of thing, so we kind of tap into them to find quotes and just a little history, but we also go to the neighborhoods and the council and as well, just to get their feedback, and then work with just designers to make them look pretty.
You know, we also have in Cincinnati signs not only about the Underground Railroad, but also signs about nature, wildlife in the corridor, native plants, you know, that kind of thing. We have information about what a greenway is and what a watershed is, and we're hoping to this year to also add, and then we have the neighborhood signs, and then we're hoping to add healthy living signs in the next year. And to do that, since I'm not a health professional, we are a member of a Creating Healthy Communities Coalition. So I would lean on our health sector partners for that content.
Well, we have a lot of people typing. While they're typing and getting their questions up, this is Anne Marie, and in our project in Yonkers, we've been doing different signs with different groups, both historians with recreation people. It Happened in Yonkers is, become a major project. It's almost a year now in going, but I think it's been a lot of fun, and I think it'll provide a lot of interest, which is part of the issue. So anyway, that's just my story. Sometimes you open up a Pandora's box, but sometimes it's a great one. It's terrific. So Hillary is asking maintenance for all projects. What have been some of the successful strategies for funding maintenance of these projects?
Well, this is Robin from Cincinnati. Groundwork Cincinnati does all the maintenance for our projects, but we're aided by recruiting volunteers to help us with the field work. So I think I mentioned before that so far we've recruited and trained over 9,000 adult volunteers, and then our students in our school program also assist us with field work. And we have a summer Green Team youth employment program, and those teams also help with maintenance while they're here. The funding is always difficult for maintenance, but because we do have such an active volunteer program, we've been able to do okay so far.
Great. So Emma is asking whether you have experience working regionally, connecting multiple towns, urban to rural,
yes.
et cetera.
Well, just very quickly, this is still Robin. I do have experience regionally. I was the chair for 2 years of a brand new group called the Regional Trails Alliance, and it's 9 counties and tri-state focus, and we've looked at ways to connect isolated trails that are, here, there, and other places around the region. How can we begin to connect all of these trails together? And then more specifically this year, we're working on a project to connect the trails in the city of Cincinnati. So definitely we're very interested both in the regional and the local aspects of trails and connectivity.
And this is Jill, and I would just echo that as you saw in my presentation, the project that we're working on is a small portion of a regional greenways plan. And one of the things that our region has struggled with is how do you work together on such a big piece? And of course, the answer is you have to break it down into smaller pieces. So that's one of the things we've been trying to do.
Yeah, that's great. Hillary had another comment here. Just check in with your local botanical gardens and parks for interpretive signage, and talk with park administrations for details. They're a wealth of knowledge for people. I wanted to ask before Alberto gets finished with his question, if people would just raise their hand if they are currently have a Greenways project underway. Because it would be, I think what I'm going to do is ask people to do a short paragraph, since we haven't really got time to share successes. I would really like to have people write a short description of what it is they're doing and have it on the Basecamp system so that you know who you are and maybe can share those things. Alberto, is asking, have you experienced that the neighborhood associations or community councils are not necessarily representative of the community? And if so, have you reached out to involve some of the groups that sometimes don't make it to those kind of meetings? So how are you finding the people that don't show up in the regular ways?
This is Robin. There are lots of groups within any given neighborhood, I think, and although we work certainly with neighborhood councils, we also collaborate with churches, with schools, with clubs or other associations, with business organizations. So that's part of it, and also with recruiting volunteers, it's not, I mean, we do work through the neighborhood councils, but we also put up posters and signs, and sometimes we distribute, flyers, door-to-door type of thing, so people know what's happening and they have an opportunity to participate if they want to.
Other thoughts? Ryan, do you have some?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because we'll go to a lot of neighborhood meetings and there'll be 4 people there, and you can't tell me those 4 people represent 2,000 people. So we have tried to work through the churches as well. That's obviously kind of a huge community resource here in Birmingham. Is there are churches, multiple ones in different communities. So you go to those meetings and you just go there and just explain to people what you're doing. We've gone through schools as well, just trying to reach people kind of where they naturally gravitate towards versus these neighborhood meetings, which you get people who are very opinionated sometimes, but they don't represent the community. So we just try to make every effort to go to places where people kind of naturally are and get their opinions there.
Yeah, I think reaching people where they're already planning to be, to things that they're already attending, I think is much more effective than inviting them to a special meeting. And again, I think that there are a lot of different ways of doing it. There are other nonprofits in neighborhoods that we work in that we also collaborate with, and you can get on other organizations' meeting agendas, to talk about issues and to get input and to invite, people to get involved.
Well, and I found one of the things when I was working on drought in California, I always wanted to meet with our farmers who we were going to ration, and basically we would have meetings, and of course none of them showed up, and so when I finally met with them, it was at their 7 o'clock coffee at the restaurant where they always go. Mm-hmm. So, I think it's finding where, as you say, they are is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, any other questions for our wonderful panelists? Well, this is great. I am very impressed. You guys did a great job. Before people leave the room, I'm going to close the meeting, and when I do, it will take you to an evaluation form that will ask you how things were and what you liked, and thank you for everybody coming. Unless last-minute questions for anyone? One of the things I want to say is there's 2 more webinars that we haven't necessarily got a fix on time and place, but one will be on the A to Z with water quality, and the other one will be a terrific one that Deanna and I heard in Washington, D.C. on outreach to elected officials. So that's it. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll end the meeting, and it'll take you to the evaluation. Thanks so much for coming, everybody.
Thanks.